Dan and Chris Powers, welcome to Permission to Shine. Boys, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling great.
Yeah, I'm buzzing right now.
I haven't been to Wee Hill in a while, so I'm pretty excited to be here.
It takes a lot for me to get out here, so you should be very honored.
Thank you.
That I was not only coming here, but very happy to come here. So
That means the world to have you guys on. I know how busy you are, so thank you for making the time.
Dude, well, you know what I forget about Wee Hill every time is the parking, bro. Like, I was looping residentials. I finally find a spot. Oh, yeah, baby. Wait, Wednesday street cleaning. And you're like, oh, my God. You can't get a win out here trying to find parking. So I'm glad we made it on time.
What is it about the West Side that you guys are so in love with?
I just feel home. It's honestly coming from New England, coming from a little beach town. When I get over there in Venice, Mar Vista, and I'm around the beach, around all the little shops and the bars, it feels like the area where I grew up in. And it's quieter there. It's more chill there. It's just my vibe.
Yeah. I feel that.
Yeah.
Where did you guys grow up again?
A town called York Beach, Maine. And it is there's 4 or 5 beaches officially, you know.
I think
there's a million, but
it's like Cape Netick, Short Sands, Long Sands, Harbor Beach, and
maybe that's it. 4.
I think that's it.
So there's 4 beaches, and it's like one of those towns where in the summer, thousands and thousands of tourists come from Boston and all over New England, and all the stores open up, and there's a million people everywhere, and there's a ton going on, and then boom, Labor Day hits, and everything closes, everyone's gone. There's literally nothing to do. You're like, oh God.
There's 2 restaurants that you can order from.
Then they close at 8 p.m. You're like, Christ. But beautiful. One of those places, dude, that when you're a kid, at least I felt this way, you're like, I'm bored, there's nothing to do here when you're 13, and then you come back when you're older and you're like, what a beautiful place to have grown up. I cannot believe I took this for granted as a kid.
Is it somewhere that you guys thought you'd ever stay? Or when you were growing up and you were like 13, you're like, I'm getting the hell out of here?
Definitely not getting the hell out of here. It was we both went to prep school. I went, 45 minutes away, and then college an hour away. So I was always pretty close. I always thought I would go further, but that's just, the cards fell in a way that I was close by, and that was great. I could drive back on the weekends if I wanted to. I loved York my whole life, all through school, all through, high school, college, childhood. But I always did want to move on. And it was with the mindset of going, I'll come back here for sure. Come back in the summers, come back for holidays. But it's a small town, and definitely if you have that big fish vibe that I'd like to think I had, I was like, I got to get out of here. But it wasn't I need to get out of here because I don't want to be here. It was more because I want to do some different things, spread those wings, let the peacock fly kind of a vibe. And if nothing more, I would say it's the people, family, and friends there that made me confident to do that. So
yeah, true.
Yeah.
I liked going back still, and I would love a place that my dad's always like, yo, I'm gonna sell the house. And I'm like, no, dude, you can't. And he's like, well, I need that money for my retirement. I'm like, yes, I don't care. I need the house to come back to. So I love going back. And
have you convinced him yet?
Dude, no.
I think it's going to be, I'm
going to buy it. Yeah, like I just going to get it from one day. So for $1, Dad, you listening? So, but I will say a lot of our buddies have moved back with families now. Like they have families, they raise kids there. And, I don't feel regret in that. I'm like, oh, I wish I was living there and having that life. But I do get jealous kind of watching them all be in the same town again. Like one of the buddies I played hockey with was a co-captain with me, is the assistant coach of the high school team now. And I'm like, his kids are just going to play on that team. And I'm like, damn, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So I don't want to be there permanently right now, but I do think it's I've accepted how beautiful it is, what they've found in York.
Yeah. It's awesome there was always that funny element of being in high school and middle school and talking to friends whose parents grew up in the town too. And they're like, oh yeah, my mom and dad had this same teacher that I have right now. And when I was younger, I was like, what? That is insane. Why would you ever stay here? And I kind of always had that mindset. And now seeing our friends who live there and their kids are going to go through the York schooling program, there's a part of me that's like, that's pretty awesome.
All right. Yeah.
It's not for me, but I do think it's cool that it's got to a place where I think that that's really great, as opposed to when I was younger, when I was like, that feels nuts. Why would anyone do this? So it's cool. It's such an awesome town, an awesome place. So it's good to go back to.
That's cool. And the story of how your family got there is pretty interesting. I'm excited to dive into that.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about is, as you were saying that, is like when you have your crew in the same city.
Oh my God, dude.
Dynamite. Our crew is so spread out.
Yep.
And like, so when you get together, you cherish the hell out of it. Like all the boys were here for New Year's Eve in LA.
Yeah.
And it was so special. I was at the gym this morning, and like Will Ferrell was working out next to me, and I was like, I need the boys here because we could just like make fun out of this, you know?
Dude, absolutely. He said he went to college in Boston area, and tons of our friends went to college in the Boston area. Not even necessarily the same school, but Boston's so tight with all the universities there. And I was down in Florida, and that killed me, dude. Those college years. And I had a great time, you know, I made some friends down there and everything. But dude, those boys getting like every weekend, like bopping to whichever school was having the sickest party, all hanging out all year. And like I would just get back at Christmas break and be like, hey, what's up? You guys having the best semester of your fucking lives.
You went to Duke, didn't you?
I went to Miami first and then Duke. Yeah. So I was in Florida, North Carolina.
Okay.
So I was always a hike away, dude. And
Did you get 2 degrees or you transferred?
yeah, no, two.
Oh,
yeah.
But when he
stacking them.
Oh yeah,
When
it's
he
hot
was
in
a
here with
kid-
those degrees, son.
this kid just suffers from FOMO, so he would come back and be like, "Have you guys been hanging out?" And we're all pale and miserable in the cold. He's got a nice Florida tan, and I'm like, "Yeah, dude, we've been going to the same 2 shitty bars for 6 months.
You've been in South
Get
Beach,
out of
dude.
my face."
Do we feel bad for Chris?
No,
I went to
come on,
Miami
yeah.
and Duke.
Ridiculous. We're all getting our nice Boston educations,
So
but we're
true.
sitting
But
there
dude, the
miserable.
boys though.
No sympathy
Boys.
for you.
Good point. Good point.
Okay, where would your compound be? Your whole crew is like
Oh,
taking
wow.
over a block. Where's it at?
Montana, no question about it.
Whoa, sick answer, dude.
No question about it. It's my favorite place in the world, in the world too. And you know I'm a London boy. You know I like getting around Europe and all that. Montana is my favorite place on planet Earth. If we could get a ranch with a nice river, stream there, maybe easy access to go skiing and rip it up in the winter, but
It's cold,
no
though.
doubt about it. Dude, because you know
Montana
what's great?
cold, dog.
You know what's great about Montana? It doesn't matter if it's cold. You get to the ranch and you put the phone away.
Yeah.
You put the phone in a basket. You're with the gang. You're with the crew. You're ripping campfires outside. You're having fun in the snow. You're having fun in the grass, playing yard games in the summer. You're cooking meals together. It is just, without question, the best place I've ever been, especially with a big group of friends, because everything else goes out the window. All the work, all the stress, all the drama is gone. You're just out there in a beautiful place, enjoying each other's company. It does not get better. No question.
Tough to beat. My knee jerk was Colorado, like Denver, or even Aspen, maybe. But I would miss the swimming. I got to find somewhere to swim. We got pools actually. We're going to Aspen. So yeah, somewhere where we could kind of ski, but you have a lot of sun in the summer too. I think would be great. Florida a little too hot in the summer. SoCal, awesome. I do love it here, but I mean, you could drive it to Mammoth, I guess. So I don't hate a Manhattan Beach area.
But that's not the combat. Like,
Yeah, you're right. The boys don't want to leave. Yeah.
You're picking a place where everyone's dry. Like, that's bullshit.
Yeah,
If the compound is, you have to be where you are.
Yeah, give me Colorado then. And I got to do some research. I got to find where my compound is, but I'm somewhere between Denver and Aspen.
I love that. You guys have become this just like creative duo and a force in LA. And to do it as brothers, I love and respect the hell out of. And I'm curious when that kind of desire came about for you guys.
Yeah.
Like you were getting 2 degrees in Duke, you're up in Boston. Like when did this creative itch start for you?
Yeah, I think we've kind of, through going to prep, we went to different prep schools and then went to different colleges. And
Wait, you guys went to a different prep school?
Yeah,
Yeah,
rival.
up.
Yeah, arch
we
rival.
went to
Why?
rival high school.
They couldn't too much talent in one room?
Yeah,
or
they were
what?
like, yo, this is not
No,
possible.
it
Place will
was-
explode.
Honestly, it was, we had some family and friends who went to Exeter where Chris went. And I always joke that I decided to go to the better one. But the reality is they're just two unreal schools. Phillips Exeter, Phillips Andover are two of the greatest, academies in the world.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, I would say the hockey program, which is always really competitive, because you're kind of at the mercy of the classes floating in and out of there, right? And the hockey program was at Exeter was better when I was there, and then when he was deciding where to go, the Andover team was better.
Got it.
So it was
but they were both
yeah.
great.
Yeah, they're always.
What's the age difference?
2 years. Honestly, for me, what it was, when it came time for me to apply to prep school, I applied to multiple. I got into Exeter and Andover, and just my visits at Andover was just more my vibe. And I think at that time, maybe not now, but Exeter is the prep school in a separate piece. It's the one that you read about when you hear about New England prep school. Exeter is the one that comes to mind. It's the strict, jacket, tie, right up to your Adam's apple.
School on Saturday.
No, yeah,
Oh,
school
yeah.
on Saturday.
Monday through Saturday.
No,
What?
can I swear on this?
Yeah.
No fucking around. Like you cannot get in trouble at Exeter. And Andover, I think now is just more, there's no Saturday class. There's more freedom for the students. I think it's a more creative school, honestly. Like it really, when I went there, I visited multiple times, and the amount of things that just came out right off the bat that were so in your face of, here are all these different programs and different opportunities for students to shine in whatever they want to do. And they were celebrating that, not so much as Exeter was like, you will come here and we're going to bury you with school and you're going to be more prepared than you've ever been in your entire life. And that's amazing. That's what prep school is supposed to be. That's why it's called prep school. But Andover to me was just like, I was like, this feels more fun.
Yeah.
I feel like and I think all of the Exeter guys love Exeter so much. We did an awesome little reunion last year where, you know, we got all the gang back together. They all went to school and saw a bunch of different stuff. I think I love Andover more than you guys love Exeter. I think that you guys love that you went to Exeter.
Yeah.
You had good times there, but I actually genuinely love the school. And I go back there all the time. I do as much as I can for it. And that was the big difference for me. That's why I went there. So to get back to us, I think we got surprised when we were in college, and not so much prep school, definitely college, and then certainly moving here, meeting a ton of people who would talk about their siblings and be like, yeah, I don't really get along with my brothers or sisters or whatever. And we were like, what?
So when you were in college, were you thinking you were going to become what?
So I think it started in prep school. So
Yeah.
we were always super into the writing world, mostly just because when we were young, we got tapped into movies and TV early, like loved that stuff, loved telling stories. I think Chris is one of the great natural storytellers who has ever lived.
You really are.
And I think that we both are just super creative. We're always coming up with different worlds and stuff like that. And when we got to prep school, and frankly, just in high school, I got into theater and we both got into creative writing. And then kind of as a way that we kept in touch when we were away at school was talking about the different creative writing projects we were working on and helping each other with that. And then kind of seamlessly, there was just a period where we were both in college where Chris is doing engineering, I'm doing business management and finance. And the only thing we would ever talk about in the summer was stories, like making up, writing screenplays, doing shit like that. And it just became clear when he went to Duke, I got nervous because I was like, oh shit, he's going to grad, like what the hell's happening?
What'd you go to grad school for?
Got my master's in electrical engineering.
That's so creative of you.
Yeah, it was like the most creative thing I've ever done, dude.
He's really using that degree.
Yeah,
well.
yeah, lit that on fire immediately.
So when he went there, I remember being like, uh-oh, I have to reconsider what we're doing here, because I thought maybe he was going to be down with this journey. Because, while I was doing business, I was auditing classes around schools in Boston, taking film classes, doing screenwriting things, reading every book I could find. Because as much as I loved what I was studying, I was like, fuck this. I don't want to sit in a cubicle. I don't want to live in New England. I want to try something. This is the only, other than sports, like outside of hockey, this world was the only thing I cared about. It was the only thing that I wanted to do. So I was like, I have to do this. And then when he went to Duke, I remember sitting down with him the summer before he left, and I was like, are you like, what's going on here? And he was like, oh, dude, I'm going here to please our family, and that's it. We're still writing every day. And I was like, hell yeah, let's go. So truly, both his years at Duke, he's doing his thing, crushing it in engineering. But I also knew our graduations were lining up, and I was like, the second we both graduate, we're driving to California. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it was wild. And I will say, doing it with Dan has been so helpful in a lot of ways, both that first year in LA, which we can talk about, but more so just on the day-to-day stuff, having the relationship, whether it's netters, whether it's screenplays, of being able to kind of get in someone's face if you need to without fear of like, oh, I don't want to offend them. I think I joked to Dan years and years ago because we'd had a blow-up fight about some script or whatever. And I kind of like stormed to my room and slammed the door. And then he comes in and he's like, dude, we gotta talk about this, or I want to talk about this. I don't want this fight to linger, to fester. And I was like, dude, get away from me, because this is a marriage. Like, I just need a second away from you. Like, we don't have to, you're not like my really good friend where we need to hash this out because I don't want it to be a problem. There will never be a problem between us ever. I'm annoyed with you right now. Give me 5 fucking minutes. And that attitude has been awesome because he can snap at me when I need it. I can snap at him when he needs it. We also know each other so well that I really think it brings out the best in us in ways that maybe even a best friend doesn't know you deep down. You know, sometimes I don't even know I'm feeling it. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing. And Dan's like, you're being fucking insecure about that. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And he's like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, yo, I am. You're right. You know, so the way we can kind of tap into each other, fight with each other in a respectful way, I think has been awesome. Not to mention there's strengths and weaknesses, obviously, that I think happen to yin and yang perfectly between us. Like if we were both good at one thing and bad at the other, it might be a hard partnership. But it's like every time I need him to step, I'm so passive. You know, I fucking hate confrontation. And like Dan is like, when we have we're getting bullied on a project or whatever, like he's the guy. He's like, yo, this is what's happening. This is why it's happening. This is what you're giving us. And I'm like, yeah, go. You know, like I need that, right? And then sometimes maybe we'll just take the exact reverse. Maybe it needs to be cooler heads prevail for a second, where I'm like, hey, I know we're all hot, but like this is going to work out because of this X, Y, and Z. Maybe I'm stepping in there, right? So I think the balance was super beneficial to everything we've been doing.
What do you remember about making the decision to move out to LA in those first couple months or couple years even?
Yeah. Honestly, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. I did the whole thing with business school, and you know, I went to a very, very intense business school. It's one of the greatest schools in the country, and I love everything about it. And I had a great.
You didn't go to the University of Iowa.
I had a great series of mentors and professors who, you know, helped line some stuff up. I had jobs lined up, and like I said, it was just that I knew I always wanted to do this, and you always had to have a backup plan, and like the business route was the backup plan, and the jobs I had lined up were in sports, which is great. But I was just looking at the path of, you know, it was in Boston, and I was going to live with the same guys that I was living with in college, and going to be an hour away from my hometown. And that's just something I always didn't want. And the key thing for me was we entered a couple of screenwriting competitions that last year of school that we won. And we always joke, it gave us the false confidence.
Yeah.
You know, you enter a screenwriting competition or a short film competition in New Jersey and New England, and you win. And you're like, oh my God, I knew it. We're the fucking Coen brothers. We got it. That false confidence, however false it was what we needed. And it was honestly something that we were able to show our parents and be like, see, look at what we've done.
Were they kind of doubting your
Not
guys' dream
Not
at that time at all?
They were just, they supported it the whole time. They knew nothing about it. It just scared them. They were like, we are, you know, children of immigrants, and we grew up in New England, and what do we know about Hollywood in California? Nothing. So we just want to make sure you know that you know what you're doing. And we were like, we don't know what we're doing, but we know we want to try it. So let us do it. So winning those little competitions was so good for us to be able to be like, see guys, like we can do this. And they were like, hell yeah, you can. Give it a shot. But dude, that false confidence, like I said, was very false, because we got here and the few people that we had met who were like, oh, I'll set you up. I'll get you a job. I'll help you, get you an assistant job at the agencies. We'll get you meetings. We'll get you an agent right away. We showed up here and those people were like, who is this? Yeah. Or, I don't have anything for you.
And you wanted to be writers.
Yeah. But dude, at the beginning, even with our false confidence, you knew you weren't just going to walk out here and like hand a script to Steven Spielberg and he makes it, right? So you get here and you're writing scripts in your apartment, but for who, dude? Like we'd finish the script and be like, okay.
So you guys drive out here, together.
Oh, horrible. Yeah, hucked it across the country.
Horrible.
We went too fast. It should have been sick. We went too fast.
We packed up my car, which Cheryl, R.I.P.
Yeah, God, great car.
We had this thing packed. Back seats, it was a Toyota Highlander. Back seats down, bags, boxes, all the way up to the two front seats and to the ceiling. Couldn't see out the rearview mirror. And then we also had this big bag, this like travel bag that was the length of the car strapped to the roof, filled with shit.
Like you're like ducking.
So dude,
like the low, like you go through bridges and it's like, do not go through this bridge. And we're like,
holding your breath.
Go. Yeah.
But we drove out. Because first of all, we found an apartment sight unseen. We almost got scammed on two places. Like these people are posting shit and they're like, oh, it's, I'm on what they were like, I'm joining the Peace Corps with my wife, and we're gonna be gone for 2 years. We need someone to rent our place, and it's this beautiful like 4-bedroom place for no money. And they're like, yeah, all you gotta do is just send us a check, and we'll mail you the keys. And I was like, Chris was like, we got it, dude. We got the best. This is what happens to good people. And I was like, I think this might be a scam, man. And it sure was. But we finally found this place. Shout out Matt Sugarman.
Yeah, right by here, dude.
You know what I did, man? I went on a BC like message board. I didn't even go to BC, but I went on a BC message board in LA, and it was like, this dude was like, I just moved. I own this apartment, and I'm renting it out. And I remember messaging him with like tears in my eyes, and I was like, dude, we've almost been scammed like 3 times. We're from Maine. I needed a place. And he was like, yeah, I'm real. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So we got that place, but you know, we started paying rent in like 5 days. So we were like, we got to get out there.
Get there, dude. I don't know.
So
money.
we packed up that car, and we just drove to friends' places. We drove to New York first, then to Cleveland, then to Minnesota, then to Colorado, then to LA. And we did it all like, dude, we left Maine, got to New York. When we got to New York, we met up with our buddy Dots, and he was like, dude, this is so amazing. You guys are moving to California. We got to go celebrate. So we parked that car with the bag on top in this sketchy ass overnight garage in New York City. And I was like, all our shit's going to be stolen by the next morning. Thank God it wasn't. But
can you imagine?
We drink all night, wake up at 6 a.m. because we got to get to Cleveland. So we're hungover, wake up, drive 10 hours to Cleveland. We get there, meet up with Chris's buddy Vince from college, and he goes, this is so amazing. You guys are going to California. We got to celebrate. So he takes us out in Cleveland after driving for 10 hours.
The boys are so excited for you.
Dude, vicious cycle everywhere we stop.
Everywhere.
Everyone's like, dude, let's go, rage, celebrate. And then I got to be up at 6 for my drive in the morning. And
but then we get to Minnesota, staying with our good family friends, the Brooks, and I'm like, thank God. We're staying with the Brooks. Their beautiful home in Minnesota. I'm going to sleep in a bed. When we get there, they're in the process of fucking moving from their childhood homes, and it's the last night in the house. So we sleep in the empty house because Tara was like, it's my childhood home. It's the last night. I want to sleep here. So I finally get to somewhere where I think I'm going to have a bed, and I sleep on the hardwood floor in a giant empty house. And I was like, what in God's green earth is happening right now? So we go from there to Colorado. Shout out Lindsay, homie from York, lives there. She was working, grinding this job. And when we got there, she was like, the keys are under the mat. I'm working all night. But if you stay up, I'll be home at 2 a.m. And it was just the most beautiful thing in the world because I went in there and I texted her and I was like, I'm going to bed. And she was like, yeah, do it. And it was the one night we didn't have to like drink or do something. And I remember Lindsay like getting into the place at 3 a.m. and just like pulling the covers up over me on the couch a little more. And I was like, thank you. I needed this so bad. But dude, we got to LA and we go meet up with my buddy out here, the one of 2 people we knew in LA, truly. He picked up the keys at the property management company for us. So I get the keys from him. It's 12:30.
Yeah, God.
We drive to the apartment, and Chris is texting a friend who is like, hey, I happen to be in LA for the weekend. Come out to this bar. And I was like, abso-fucking-lutely not. Like, we're getting set up.
We're in LA.
Hey, baby Venice.
I'm like, we're going to bed.
There's 2 girls here.
Yeah, right? I'm like, we're going to bed. And Chris is like, fine. We get to the apartment, dude. And after a week of me being on the phone every day with LADWP to make sure that the power is on in the place by the time we get there, we key into the door. I hit the light switch. No power. I collapsed on the ground in tears like a fucking baby immediately because it was just that rigorous 5-day drive. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, what the hell do we do now? It's midnight. There's no lights to put stuff in the place. We don't even know what it looks like. And Chris goes, well, I guess we go to the bar now.
What do you want me to do, dude?
Opposites.
Yeah.
Partners.
Exactly.
But we did.
Yeah.
We went to Townhouse, I think.
Townhouse, dude. Hell yeah. First bar.
Oh my God. It was insane. But
dude, the crazy thing was that first week, we kept calling to get the power turned on, and they'd come and be like, we couldn't do it. Or like all these complications. So for that first week, we were like, because I can't charge anything, right? So we were going to like Starbucks or something, charge our stuff, work a little bit, and then go back to the house. And we'd go to some bar like pretty early because it was September. Yeah, we used to go to some bar and like pound a bunch of beers and a burger, and then come back to the apartment and just watch Netflix on Dan's laptop till it died, and then just try to fall asleep.
It wasn't even that.
Yeah.
It wasn't even Netflix yet. It was like the Office DVDs.
Yeah.
I would literally put a DVD into my old school laptop and watch until it would literally die, and then we'd sit there in the apartment. It was
What year was this?
2013.
And dude,
Decade.
yeah.
Congrats.
And dude,
boys.
when we eventually flipped out, actually our dad put us up in a hotel for a couple nights because he could tell we were losing our shit. And then eventually I called the power place and I'm like, what is happening? And they're like, well, there's just a switch. Like literally, you just have to turn on your apartment. Like there's a whole grid at your apartment building with every apartment unit. I just have yours is off. I just have to turn it on. And I'm like, so why isn't the guy been turning it on? And they're like, well, when he gets there to his scheduled meeting time, there's a gate where the grid's behind and the gate's locked.
It was like this 10-foot metal grated area on the side of the building that had all the power boxes. And he was like, I don't have the key for that.
So I'm like, where is it? So we just go around the corner and it's right there. And I'm like, this jump over the fence.
Excuse
on.
me. I jumped
Yeah,
over.
jump over the fence, on, jump back.
But what was great is in flipping the switch, I had to like flip a major switch and it set off the fire alarm in literally every apartment in the entire building.
Hey, we're your new neighbors, Chris and Dan.
And I was like, listen, I've got power now, so sorry.
Had to happen.
Had to happen.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That's amazing. I love that story so much.
Oh, it was wild. It was a great apartment, dude. It was a great apartment. That first year, it was pretty crazy because, you know, like I was saying earlier, you're trying to find jobs. We want to be writers, but I need a job to pay some rent and everything. And in my head, we would either get a job from all the contacts we had. They're like, oh, yeah, my brother-in-law's at Disney. And I'm like, great, I work for Disney now. Wrong. Or we'll bartend because we had bartended for years. So I was like, whatever, I have a great bartending resume. But then you get here and everyone's bartending because they're all actors and stuff trying to have the flexible hours. So, dude, we were looking around all over the place trying to get gigs with nothing. And the money we saved over the summer in Maine, like, buy out here so fast. So Dan eventually finds a bartending gig at the Buffalo Wild Wings in Crenshaw, and which is tough, dude, a tough part of town. And Dan gets a gig there. I'm still looking every Tuesday. Yeah, it must have been every Tuesday.
Right.
Every Tuesday, Dan we had off and would get a paycheck. And Dan's paying for everything at this point because like we were out of money. I don't have a job, so Dan would get his paycheck, and we'd drive to the Bank of America on Larchmont, and he would cash his paycheck, and then we would get sandwiches at Larchmont Deli. And that was
Which
like
doesn't exist anymore.
that was like our
Which is
one
bummer.
treat for the week of like we would get a sandwich at Larchmont Deli on Tuesdays. And bro, I was going around and Dan's being like, get a job. I'm like, I'm fucking
Dude, but what would happen?
You have a master's in
Yeah.
electrical
Yeah.
engineering from
This is-
Duke.
This is what would happen. Because he could get a job at Raytheon or something, right? And get a 6-figure job like that. But then that's working from 8 to 8 every day. And I'm like, no, we need to write. Like, this is
That's
the
what it
dream.
felt
This is
like,
what
yeah.
we came here to do this shit, not work engineering and business jobs. So we were just so fixated on, we're doing everything we can, making as many contacts as we can in the entertainment business, which, by the way, with no contacts, and I will say this, dude, everyone fucking here knows somebody.
Yeah.
Everyone is someone's nephew or someone's cousin, and we genuinely knew nobody. So it was brutal breaking in and just figuring it out. But in that time, we were like, if we get jobs, they're going to be assistant jobs. They're going to be, working for an executive, working for a studio, working for an agency or something like that. So in this little period, we were like, let's get day jobs. Let's get things like bartending. But what would happen is he would go in and apply to fucking Chipotle.
Yeah, dude.
And they'd look at his resume and go, I'm not hiring you. You're obviously going to leave any day when whatever you're doing, something comes up and you're going to bounce, which I totally get. But that was the issue. It was even the Buffalo Wild Wings job. I gave them a different resume. I literally gave them a resume of all my bartending jobs, not my actual resume. And they were like, oh, you're a great bartender. And that's how it worked. But it was like, dude, those days, I mean, you always hear the funny stories about like the James Franco working at McDonald's and stuff like that.
I couldn't even do that, dude. I got a master's. I can't roll a burrito.
Dude,
You fucking kidding me? Dude?
to be very clear,
How'd that feel?
It was
Yeah,
awful,
right?
bro.
to be very clear, like we had all the support in the world from our family, friends, and if we ever needed anything, we had a support system that we could call to, but call it pride or call it the wanting to prove that we did this for a reason and we knew what we were doing. That first year, man, like we were eating cans of creamed corn with Frank's Red Hot sauce
Yeah.
on it for dinner, no joke.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like it was fucking brutal.
I would
And-
tell the
and-
boys I would put Frank's just in my mouth for like when I was feeling hungry during the day. You just like drip hot sauce in your mouth because we had literally
Not a joke.
nothing. Yeah.
Like we would go to, like Chipotle would have those funny things where it was like during Halloween. We learned this from our buddy Kevin, but it's like you show up at Chipotle with that Halloween costume on and they'll give you a free burrito bowl. And like we would do that at 5 different Chipotles and then like have a meal for a week.
This is fucking huge, dude. Are you kidding me?
And
Does that still work?
Yeah,
I think so.
It
Yeah.
does.
And it's just like those were the days. It's like, people, we're not, smash successes by any stretch of the means yet, but people look at what we're doing and they see like these great things going on and they're like, Jesus, like you guys decided to move to California and it just happened. And sometimes we're like, that is not fucking true, man. Like I think about those cream corn days and cans of tuna, like putting soy sauce on cans of tuna and being like, what on earth am I doing out here? Like there were so many days where you're like, Jesus Christ.
Things take so much longer than people realize.
Oh,
I feel like you've been here for a decade now,
Yeah.
right? Chick-fil-A's been around since like the 60s.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
these things compound,
Absolutely.
It takes a lot of time.
Absolutely.
What do you remember about the first time that things started to click and you got a little bit of momentum?
I remember comically the first job. There's a few things. One of the first ones I remember, I was working at that Buffalo Wild Wings and I was applying around to jobs, doing this and that. And I quit that Buffalo Wild Wings because I was in there on a day, closing up the bar on a Wednesday. And this dude comes into the bar, shaved head, looks like Cypher from The Matrix. And he's cracked out of his mind. And he's just sitting at the bar asking me for a drink. And he puts like 37 cents in change on the bar. And I was like, it's not enough, man. And he's like, all right, dude, Rick said he'll buy me a drink. Rick down at the end of the bar. And there's no one else at the bar. And I was like, I believe that Rick said he'd buy you a drink, man, but I need money if I'm going to give you a drink. He goes to the bathroom and comes back with a Bic razor and starts shaving his dry head and bleeding everywhere. And I literally walked, swear to God, I literally walked out of the bar into my manager's office and went, I'm done. And he was like, what? It happened. And he walked out into the bar area and saw it and was like, yep, don't blame me at all. Get out of here. And I left. Like that was it. And from there, I got this shitty job as like an intern at a management company. And I was applying around and I got a job with John Turtletaub, unbelievable guy, director of the National Treasure movies, Cool Runnings, The Meg, and this woman, Courtney Saladino, who is a unreal executive. And when I got the call from Courtney that I got the job, I was standing in our apartment that we were 2-bedroom apartment, really 1.5 bedroom apartment that we were living in with 4 guys at this point. Cause it was just like friends moved out. They needed help. Another guy was living in a terrible area, needed help. And I collapsed to my knees after the phone call and screamed victory like Johnny Drama. No joke. Cause it was like, I was like, holy shit. Like I needed this job so bad. So that was one for sure for me that I was like, okay,
we can stay.
Like, we can stay.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I do remember the first time, because like I was saying, you kind of just throw your scripts around. You got buddies that like in the mailroom at agencies and they're reading it because they want to be agents someday, but also they're really just faking until they make it too. But they just get passed around enough. And eventually one script we wrote, we got a cold call. Manager was like, hey, I got your script. Would you guys like to meet? And we were like, sure. And every call we ever had about that was somebody unqualified who had thoughts on the script. And I'm like, okay, but like, why am I taking your notes and you can't even do anything with it, whatever. That was always the call. So we drive all the way to fucking, what was his restaurant?
Sherman Oaks. We went to Sherman Oaks.
And get up there and this guy Mike's like, hey, what's up? Loved your script. Really think it's cool with your story. We kind of give him the background. And then he's like, okay, so, and I'm like, here come the notes. And he's like, I think it's great. I'd love to represent you. And we were like, oh. And dude, I didn't even know how that worked. Like I was like, do you sign something? What's happening right now? So we were like, we need to call you back. But I was freaking out because I was like, oh, wow. Someone out here whose job it is to find writing talent has called us, brought us here to be like, I want to represent you and you guys are going to go far. And I was like, holy shit. So, and we've moved around a bunch since then, but that was an awesome moment of like, oh shit, maybe we can do this. So that was cool.
I love that.
And then I think the big one, with writing, representation is so huge. And we had, Mike was amazing. We had another manager here and there. We kind of found our forever managers, I'd like to think. But you have all those moments where you're working on stuff, you go out for jobs, you do this and you do that. I think the big one for us was, I think it was 2019, we got on the blacklist. And that's, it's a great list. It's the 50 best unproduced scripts in Hollywood, voted on by agents, managers, producers, executives, and all that. And when that happened, it was a huge moment of like, holy shit, and getting on that without any greasing or anything like that, and people just reading your shit and being like, I like this, I'm gonna send an email about it, was unreal. The reason I think it stands out so much was because at this point, we'd been in LA for a while. We'd been in LA for 6 years. We had met some great people, a lot of people in the industry, but so many of them, of our dear, dear friends today, kind of knew us as just Chris and Dan, your buddies.
Yeah.
And getting on the blacklist made a ton of these people, our friends who were agents, who were assistants, who were executives, they saw that and they were like, what the fuck? And then read it and they were like, wow, I knew you guys were writers, but I didn't know you were good. And that was one of those funny moments of, felt very validating. It was really nice, but it was also kind of like a fuck you, like, why didn't you give me the chance? And we kind of had to balance that dynamic of, you become friends with someone out here and they work in the biz, if you will. It's a really awkward and vulnerable thing to say, hey, I'm a writer, would you read my script? Especially when it's someone that you're developing like a real friendship with, because on the one hand, you don't want them to think that you're looking at them as just an industry contact who could maybe help you someday. And on the other hand, you don't want them to read your script and hate it and be like, this is awkward now. So it was cool to have something like the blacklist give people an opportunity to read us without us asking, and that opened a ton of doors.
Yeah.
And it was truly from there, our agents, our managers were like, we're buzzing now. And we have been, which is great. So that moment truly felt like the massive gasp and inhale of fresh air to be able to say, we're not clowns and we can do this, and be able to show it to, the family and the people supporting us of like, we're going to be okay. So it was nice.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I had two different distinct feelings coming into our podcast today, or like over the last week, as thinking about this. The first was just excitement because I love you guys and I'm proud of you guys and I knew we'd have fun. And the other was intimidation because you guys are epic podcast hosts. And anytime you have somebody who's as good as you guys at what you do coming on to like my podcast, it's like, man, I really got to bring my A game. Like you're going to judge me and whatnot. And I want to talk about the podcast.
Yeah.
What has it kind of meant to you guys? And what do you remember when you first started it?
Man, we started it. We were already doing Empty Netters, the Instagram page, which was also reasonably new, a year old probably, or not even.
Not even.
Not even.
We started in January, and I think we had a conversation with one of the execs over the summer about, I had mentioned, we have this great podcast studio in the office. Why aren't podcasts more of a priority for this company?
Can you explain Empty Netters?
Yeah.
The context of it?
So Friday Beers, Almost Friday Media, the company has a bunch of different laterals and verticals, and one of them is the Friday Beers main page, obviously. Those guys brought us in 2.5 years ago to be like, hey, is there anything we can do? A lot of our followers identify that they like hockey. We'd like to do something about hockey, but we don't know shit about hockey. So we're looking for someone that can write jokes, but also knows hockey. And we're like, we can do that.
And you guys grew up in a hockey family.
Oh, my God. Yeah, playing our whole lives.
Like you kind of alluded to, everything in life was hockey until, we graduated. And it was what we do now. Yeah.
Was your dad a hockey coach?
Yep.
Yeah,
He coached
and player.
and then he coached, we coached us when we were kids too, but then he became the high school coach in our hometown, the very end of my high school career, all of yours.
Won a state championship without us, which was
devastating. Wow. Yeah, with our roommate Shane.
No way.
Shaner got it.
Shane's got that on you.
Yeah,
he brings it up a lot.
all the time. So he's like, "What do you guys want for breakfast? My state championship or eggs?" I'm like, "Fuck you, dude." So we were big hockey guys. Always have been, religiously watch hockey still. Even before this gig. So we're like, yeah, we'd love to do it. So we opened the page, which is just, us making meme jokes and everything about the current league. And then when we pitched the podcast idea and they were like, yeah, take it away, we started it, and it was this. It was us two of us sitting on a couch rambling about hockey. And I think A, we have good compatibility being brothers and everything. B, we know a lot about hockey, so there's some validity to it. And C, we got lucky, right? Like everybody else. But Friday Beers has a great network, and we were putting out a good enough product. And then a couple NHL guys, reached out. We're like, hey, can we come on the pod? And we're like, yeah, dude, you sure can.
They reached out.
Yeah, it goes back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was crazy.
So it was a great situation. And then once you kind of get the ball rolling, right? Like once it gets pushed down the hill, and guys had good experiences, I'd like to think. That's been a big thing for us where a guest will come on and then he'll be like, oh, you should do this homie on my team or this homie I used to play with who's on this other team. He'd have a great time here. And then they'll connect us, right? So like we get more guests through players, which is a great thing because it's proof positive that you're kind of doing a good job and doing something that they like to participate with. So yeah, once halfway through last season was we got our first guest, and then it was kind of really cooking. And then, but there was a lot of weeks without a guest because it's mid-season. We're trying to do what we can. We were still working out the kinks of a Zoom pod or remote pod. Mm-hmm. And then over the summer when they were off, the boys just were piling in. And that was a big push where, you're like, oh, I wonder if this will dip over the summer off season. But instead it ramped up because all the players had more time. They were coming to the studio. We were going to them, doing all kinds of stuff. And it's just been really, really firing this year. So a lot of cool things on the horizon.
And you guys are getting like the best NHL players in the country.
Yeah, it's been, I think something that was huge to us was when the podcast started and it was clear that it was a thing. It was doing well. People were listening to it. We got some NHL players who wanted to come in and wanted to come on the show. And we were so determined to just be different. Yeah. There's so many sports podcasts out there. We weren't even sure if we wanted to do it. And then when we got guests, we sat down with each other and just said, how is this going to be different for them? Not for the listener so much, for them. And I think hockey players are the best professional athletes in the world. And I mean that from both I think it is impossible to play hockey, and these guys doing it at the professional level and these girls doing it at the professional level is unbelievable. But then also their personalities are just so awesome. They're so fun. They're so cool. They're so down to earth. And that doesn't really shine through that often. They're so well media trained and they're so about their privacy. You see all the time these guys do interviews and they kind of just go, yeah, the team did this, the team did that. We're just trying to do. There isn't that pizzazz that exists in the NFL and NBA. And we kind of thought, what is the way we can get them to show their personalities more? And we honestly took an approach that Hot Ones does of give them questions they've never had. These guys do interviews, even if it's not post-game interviews. They do, interviews for their team's media, and they just get asked the same shit. So we just do a good job, I'd like to think, of doing as much research as we can, finding out really personal, fun details of all of these people, and asking them questions that are going to make them go, holy shit, I've never talked about that before, or how on earth do you know that? And it just makes them light up.
Yeah.
And it's been so fun. And I think the reason we get a lot of great guests is because they see their, friends in the league and their coworkers and their teammates coming on our show and having a blast. And they're like, oh, I would do that too. And it's made it so much more fun for us because we're not a hockey podcast that's looking for scoops and looking for viral clips of, like, oh, this player said this about his coach. Instead, our viral clips are, Charlie McAvoy telling a funny story about how Brad Marchand spray painted his gloves for the Winter Classic because he's so superstitious. Or another guy telling a story about how when he's out in public, he has a fake persona and a different name so he doesn't have to be himself. And that fake persona has its whole backstory with where he works and what his hobbies are. And it's like, that's the funny shit that I think people like coming to our show to see about all of these guys that they like watching in the league. It's a blast.
I love watching it grow. I mean, I remember when you guys started it, we were on our first ski trip.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Just started.
Literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
And now you guys are really like back, like all access at the Stanley Cup, and
That's so funny.
you're doing interviews at like the center of the rink,
Yeah.
stadium, right? Like the red carpet.
Yeah.
You're doing your investigator,
Yep.
Yeah, that was
lie
fun.
detector stuff sponsored by the NHL.
Yep.
Yep.
Those are brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah.
You look
those were
very
fun.
dapper in those, dude.
Those
like,
were fun.
dialed in.
Because it's like those guys at Media Tour, it's the beginning of the season, These guys, it's usually 1 to 2 players per team. They show up and they get put through the ringer for 2 days. We're in a hotel in Vegas and they go in room after room after room after room. And it's truly the content for the NHL for like the whole year. And they get a little exhausted. And when they came into that room and they were like, you're about to get hooked up to a lie detector test, they were like, what on earth? Truly 80% of them were like, fuck this, I'm not doing it. And then they saw me in like a suit and glasses and turtleneck and they're like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah.
Man.
They were like, oh, this is a joke. And I was like, yeah, we're just acting here. So that was a blast for sure.
That's super
We got some funny stuff.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'm really proud of you guys.
Thank you, dude.
And obviously, this is just one thing of many that you guys will continue to accomplish.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're hoping to keep the foot on the gas with all these different things for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I want to talk about your guys' lineage because I
Yeah.
think it's super interesting.
For sure.
You said that your parents were children of immigrants. Can you kind of walk us through that?
For sure, dude. Yeah, so I'll start on our mom's side. So our mom, she's Lebanese, and my mom's dad, our mom's dad, grew up in Lebanon
It's my mom.
with all his family, and he came over to America. He's a doctor, and came over to America. God, I don't know what year. We should know, but a lot, long time ago, and started to practice. And he landed in Milton, Mass at first, and then moved to Dover, New Hampshire. And Dover's really close to our town in Maine, actually. And once he got to Dover, that's kind of when he had enough money to start waving in the family members. So there is actually a massive Lebanese contingent in Dover, New Hampshire to this day. I would say most of whom we're related to. It's,
Shout out to the Grape Leaves and the Habibis.
yes,
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
yeah.
Hell
So
yeah.
it's and my mom's dad died when our mom was
13.
13. Yeah, really young.
Tragic.
Yeah.
It was a
So
weird accident too.
it was crazy.
He like snagged his leg on a nail painting the deck of their summer house. And as a doctor, he was like, I'm fine. And then it just blood clot straight to his brain. Middle of the night, he walked up to our grandmother and was like, hey, you got to take me to the hospital. I'm about to die. And he died in the car.
He's like, I have a blood clot. We have to rush, and then just didn't make it. Crazy. So and my grandmother was way younger than him. You know, he was 10, 12 years older. So it was just my mom and her brother and their mom, our grandmother. And I think the Lebanese crew being there was super helpful, right? Because it was just like a massive support system for them. You know, they didn't lose their only father. They have 15 fathers that they could go.
They lost the All-Father.
They lost the All-Father, yeah.
You know, he brought so many people.
He was
so
like
many
mayor.
Yes,
Lebanese
dude.
people
Oh my
over to
God.
that area.
And it was interesting because at the time, my mom's brother, our uncle, didn't have kids. He does now, but they're 2 girls. So I remember when we were young and we were kind of getting dragged to all these because they go nuts for the family events, Palm Sunday, Easter, like all that stuff. There'd be like huge parties at their houses. And we were kind of the direct line, you know, from George, who brought everyone here. So, you know, we were always getting dragged in. Everyone's like, oh, Chris, like a lot of cheek pinching, a lot of stuff going
But
on.
we were also the worst, dude.
Yeah.
They all speak Arabic. We don't.
Yep.
They all look traditionally Lebanese. We don't. So they're going to like, how the fuck are you George's grandkids?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's ridiculous.
Our like Norwegian dad. It's like, my bad.
Yeah. But it was cool because they really do have a great family thing going on. You know, Thanksgivings were massive. All the holidays were massive. And my mom, this is the thing I sent you. So my mom's aunt, her dad's sister, she was a legend, dude. Like, 'cause she was always like, even though George brought everyone over, Teresa, Aunt Therese, we call her Aunt Therese, she would be the one, she was the matriarch, dude. Like, she was sitting there, everyone would have time on her lap, you know, she's pulling everyone over, ridiculous dresses and earrings and everything. And Sandra, my girlfriend, who you know, obviously, has a bunch of Lebanese friends at HBS. And when I would meet them and they were like, what's your family? And to Dan's point, I'm like, I don't know enough, dude. I didn't do the research, but we would dig up those articles and they're like, dude, her dad, like Teresa's dad, was the mayor of this town in Lebanon. She was the spokesperson for the president of Lebanon. Like, you are like a massively important Lebanese family. And I'm like, sick, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
They're the
a
best.
beautiful thing that they've built. And Sandra's friend Joe told me a cool story. Well, cool, I guess depending on how you look at it. But he was like, Lebanon went through this big change where there were these really important families that had a ton of money and, you know, kind of lived up high on the cliffs and everyone else was down in the bottom. And eventually the Lebanese government shifted to be like, hey, we need to like disperse the wealth here and help everybody. And that's when my family left because they were like, oh, okay, well, if I can't be like in charge here anymore, we're going to America. And it's a funny shift because he was like, oh yeah, you guys were up on the hills, dude. And it's such a cool thing. I want to know more. You know, my grandmother has this epic family tree, and I love when we get to look at it and hear stories about all the people that, you know, built our family, our community to get us here. So yeah, it was pretty special to hear about all that.
And it's cool, you know, like we talked about the support that we had, and truly most of it being just emotional. It comes from that, you know, it's that open door policy that you've experienced with us and that our mom and dad showed us. It comes from all of those ancestors that were always just so big on the get as many people of the family under one roof as possible, as often as possible. Yeah. And I love that, you know, and it's kind of how we operate with ourselves here. You know, when we moved to LA that first year, we didn't have enough money to go home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we were like, obviously we're picking Christmas. We're going home for Christmas. So we did Thanksgiving out here, and we had one of our buddies come over to the house, and then one of our friends from home was actually down in Long Beach, and he drove up, and the four of us cooked a turkey, watched some football, and drank some beers. And we were like, this is kind of awesome. Cool. And then every year since then, until this year, we had stayed in LA for a Thanksgiving and just turned it into an open door. Whoever's a straggler left in LA and is not going home, come to our house. And we added multiple years where that Thanksgiving was like 25 people.
Yeah.
And it was gas. So fun. But it's that mentality of like, bring it all in, you know, bring everyone in as much as possible. And I hope to keep that going for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That is so fun.
Absolutely something we learned on that side of the family. Our dad would always joke, it takes so long to leave a Lebanese party.
Oh,
say
yeah.
you're leaving, you're like, okay.
Dude.
He says when we would get to parties, you have to say goodbye the second you walk in. Start saying goodbye the second we walk in. We'll be here 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
When I was younger, but you know, not a child, like when I got into high school, college, and we would be at these things, my dad would always come up to me and be like this, hey, time to go. And in that first few years of doing that, I'd always be like, why is dad doing this? And now I know it's because he's like, it's time to go. We'll be leaving in 3 hours, but I'm just letting you know now, because that's truly how long it takes. And now I'm like, whenever he does that, I'm like, yep, sounds good. And I'm like, you start rallying the troops, and it takes 3 hours to leave.
I got mad at myself too, because I took a while. I was never a picky eater, but I took a while to really expand the palate. And he was always pretty into it. But we would go, like you were saying, we'd go to those Lebanese parties, and it was the grape please and the debouli and the authentic stuff, dude. And I was like, not for me. You know, I'm like eating the pita bread. And now I think it's delicious. And I'm like, God, how did I miss out on fucking Teresa's grape please?
The homemade hummus.
You kidding me?
Stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
I just love hearing where this stems from for you guys, because I feel really lucky to have experienced that hospitality and that generosity.
Yeah.
My first night living in LA was Halloween. And Chris, you shoot me a text, you're like, hey, Halloween party, gotta be there. So I roll out. I literally landed at like 5.
Oh my God.
Like I'd been on the road for like 2 weeks, meeting, coming from Vancouver. And I get here, drop my stuff. I'm like, I don't have a Halloween costume. I got to go pull something together and show up. And it's like the most incredible, kind crowd.
Yeah,
I just moving to LA, and they're like, oh, dude, good luck out there. And my first night is just met with such generosity, and everyone's just so welcoming. And that all stems from you guys.
Yeah, you're like small.
That party was big.
Yeah.
It's like 200.
Yeah, easy.
250.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Backyard is full.
Incredible, dude. Yeah, but no, you're 100% right. I think that's it's something, and you know, we didn't even get into my dad's side, but they're equally generous and amazing.
Oh yeah,
and
the best.
I think that's something that was instilled in us at a very young age. Every friend group when you're younger has the house where kind of everyone congregates to, and I remember thinking like, oh, it was lucky that it was ours, because you know it was always at our house, but it wasn't luck. It was my parents, and it's definitely something that we try to extend to our crew too.
Yeah, that's cool. You guys have certainly accomplished a lot on your own because of your own accord, but I think a lot of times we stand on the shoulders of other giants, right? Like I certainly feel that way, and I named this podcast Permission to Shine.
Yeah.
Because I think when you surround yourself with people who bring out the best in you, life just goes a lot better. And I'm curious for each of you, who's that person you think of that like has just helped you grow into who you are the most?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I kind of said some of this at the top, but I would list him for sure. I think everything we've accomplished together, I could not have done alone. Maybe to some percentage, right? You know, maybe I'm 80% of where I am, but it doesn't happen without Dan and my relationship with Dan. But I'm going to give a kind of rogue shout out, but I think you'll appreciate it. And you might know him actually. Huge shout out to our good buddy Dan Mavridis, DMav. And you should have him on, by the way. Princeton Hooper, played pro ball in Greece, and then became the face of the Olympic men's 3-on-3 basketball team. So he's going to the Olympics this year. He was there last year. Incredible story, incredible person.
That's DMAV.
Yeah. DMAV is, and kind of doing it a lot too. He's in finance, or he's in wealth management, but also playing ball still, and all this. Got a lot going on. But DMAV is a person who I feel like, you said it earlier before we started recording, I feel like Superman when DMAV is around. And I don't know if it's, he does it to everybody or whatever, but dude, I get, for me as a human being, I'm self-conscious. Everyone's self-conscious, right? And sometimes,
Guys, if you're listening, Chris is the most attractive, smart, studly man, and if he's self-conscious,
we're all screwed. But no, sometimes you're in a good mood and you're going out, whether it's a bar or just like at a social setting, and you're chilling, you're fine. But some days I'm like, oh, I feel quiet. I don't know how to open it up to this conversation. When I'm around DMAV, he is just like, he's so outgoing, so it makes it easier on you, and he's so complimentary about me or whoever he's with. Like, he is the gas up king. And if I spend 5 minutes with DMAV, you could release me into anywhere, dude, and I would take over the room, because I'm so pumped full of confidence because of that kid. So, and I wish he would do it to himself more. And I try to do it to him as much as I can, because I can barely get a word in because he's gassing me up too much. But I tell you what, dude, that kid, he has a bright future, and I love being around him because of his impact on others. So that's a huge one for me.
It's a great answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's Chris. I think a lot of people assume that we're twins.
Yeah.
Which is funny because we look nothing alike. But I think it's because from a young age, I mean, dude, Chris talked earlier about how he's passive, and I can be very confrontational, not in a bad way, but like, I don't shy away from confrontation. I think that's how, I think pressure makes diamonds, and I think it's results in some of the greatest opportunities when you are not afraid to roll up your sleeves and get dirty in the mud with shit. But with that, I give him shit way too much sometimes. I'm too aggressive sometimes with him, and he's never pushed me away his whole life. And being a younger brother, with sports especially, I was so much better than him, so I was always playing at the level that he was at. That's a joke. But, especially with hockey, like when you're younger, you do get kind of pulled up into stuff. And there were times where I was playing on his team when I was at the lowest possible age and he was at the highest possible age. And it would have been so easy with things like that, with things like his friend group, with things like what he was reading, what he was interested in. He could have been like, you're my little brother, get away from me. And he never did that. And that carried over through our entire lives and now our professional careers, of just knowing that he's always going to be there for me and always going to champion me and lift me up. And it has been the most uplifting thing of my entire life. Now, my rogue shout out, I would like to think I am a perceptive person with human emotion and behavior. And I'm very attuned to when I think someone's bullshitting, and I look for it too much. And that happens a lot in LA.
Yeah.
One of my best friends to this day, Andover buddy, his name's Ethan Hirschberg. He's the most no nonsense, no bullshit guy I've ever met in my life. He will be your best friend. And if you present him with something that you think is great and he doesn't like it, he'll go, that's a piece of shit. And when we first met, I remember being like, this guy's an asshole. And then 6 months into our relationship, I was like, this is one of the best friends I'll ever have because I know I can always trust him. And I've had multiple days where I've been like, like I wrote this script or I have this idea and it's not getting the responses that I would have liked or the attention I would have liked. And I'll send it to Ethan and he would read it and he'd tell me what's wrong with it. Or the better ones for me and my confidence and just my self-esteem were when he would look at something and be like, this is fucking awesome, keep going. I don't care if no one's read it and has liked it. I don't care if you're getting any meetings on it. It's awesome. Don't stop. Don't quit. And having someone as real as him in my life for all these years, especially these last 10 plus years in LA, when I have had those moments and had his encouragement and just it's funny because he's not a cheerleader.
Yeah.
He'll do it more in ways like, don't be a fucking wuss. Don't quit. Stay out there and keep doing this. That shit has been so valuable to me. I can't even begin to thank him enough. And what's funny is if he hears this, he'll call me and say I'm being a little bitch about it. And I love that.
Yeah.
I need that. But those people have been very awesome to have in the corner.
Yeah, I will say to a wide scale shout out to everyone, most people we are buddies with from home and grew up with.
Yeah. And like the
Because-
family, those are obvious.
But no, but just because there were those breaks early, right? Like Christmas break, I'm home, summer, I'm home, where they're like, how's it going out there? And it's not going that well, right? Like, I'm like, I can't get a Chipotle, you know, I'm like, whatever.
Are
And
you familiar with creamed corn?
yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's how it's going.
and all of them would be like, we fucking love you guys. Like, go get it, dude. You're fucking out there. Like, we're still in York and we have a family and great and everything's awesome. But like, you guys are fucking chasing something. Fucking don't quit. And I can't tell them, I'll never be able to tell them how valuable that was early, because I wanted to quit half the fucking time, you know, and just to get home and get that pump up from the crew, the homies, the original crew being like, we fucking love you guys. You can do it.
Yeah.
I'd come back with extra fire, be like, we can do it. Come on. You know.
You guys are extraordinary humans and you've already accomplished so much. Is there anything in your future or any experience or event or accomplishment that you guys crave having that you
Ooh.
haven't already done?
Yeah. So it's an easy one for me. We have a lot of movies, scripts, few TV, but mostly movies in various stages of development, you know, and a lot of them look super hopeful, but things can change in this business so fast, right? But I promise you this, sitting in a movie theater seat next to him when a movie ends and then it says written by the Powers Brothers on a fucking massive screen, I have a bottle of scotch that I bought 10 years ago that's sitting on my desk that I told myself I would open with Dan the night that happened.
Me too.
And
It's tequila though.
yeah, and haven't done it yet, getting pretty close.
Yeah, it's coming soon.
But
Which is
that will be a really cool, you know, like you said, so much good has happened. I'm not complaining in any way, shape, or form, but that will be a moment where I'm like, fuck yes.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, you'll be there, buddy.
To
You'll be
me,
there.
The next step, like my moment, is I can't wait for that, but I think I'm gonna black out for that.
Yeah, fair.
I don't mean from the scotch. I mean from the emotion. I'm such a journey guy, and what I can't wait for is the premiere of that movie, this first movie that's coming out. I can't wait for, whether it be in our house, in a bar, whatever, when we just get the crew that comes and we all sit together after, just to be like, well, that was nuts. I can't wait for that moment. To not even the watching it, seeing the credits. It's just like the sitting with the day ones and the day twos after and being like, hell yeah, like that was unreal.
Yeah.
Like breakfast after the good party.
Yeah,
you know, back in
yes,
college.
dude.
Exactly.
Oh,
The grown-up
God.
version.
Yeah.
Those are the
100%.
memories, yeah.
Guys, I'm so glad to call you friends.
Like right back at you.
You guys inspire me so much and have taught me so much, especially about this podcast journey.
Yeah.
And so just thank you for the incredible work that you're doing. Congrats on everything that you're doing.
Thank
Follow Empty Netters. It's the
Yeah,
best place.
yep.
You guys are putting out so much amazing content. I'm so proud of you there. Check out the video on YouTube
Yes,
from our podcast,
yes.
Mission to Shine today. And keep grinding and keep killing it, boys. Love you guys.
Love you too.
Love
dude.
you
Thanks.
back.